Goku's son, DBC here, and welcome back for part 2. Checking out the artwork from the collection. Last time, I checked out that One Piece, checked out The Punisher, X-Men Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes. This time, we'll be checking out X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom 1, and we'll say Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for its own video. So with that said, this is going to be the heaviest nostalgia for me trip. It's going to be these three games, as though technically X-Men vs. Street Fighter came out first, I actually experienced Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter first. From, as I mentioned in the last video, I discovered a lot of these games, especially Capcom stuff, mostly thanks to Blockbuster Video, which I have to this day, a very big fondness for that. And I really do miss Blockbuster. With that said, let's begin with the first of the three. And first, we have the classic cover art. This was used, one of the pieces of music used in the, I want to say, Japanese cover artwork, which is pretty awesome. But I can't wait to get to the individual character designs. Now, with X-Men vs. Street Fighter, it was interesting as... Now, I did experience this first on the PS1, the same as Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. I didn't get to experience the amazing Saturn versions of these games until much later on. With that said, I still actually own my PS1 copies of these, disc only. I bought the games back when Blockbuster was closing the year, getting rid of all their old inventory. I picked up probably about 5 or 6 PS1 games from their closing sale, and all had really good nostalgia for them. This was one of those games. Classic Cyclops design. And you can't beat classic Cyclops, honestly. Probably one of the best characters, place-wise. He definitely was a bit on the broken side in this game, arguably. Though, you want to talk a nightmare to fight against. I mean, he definitely was pretty hard. I did always find it weird, though, this game, how you always face your teammate after beating Apocalypse. So Apocalypse never truly was the ultimate final boss in any game, because you would fight your teammate after him in this, and the next game it would be Cyber Akuma after Apocalypse. Then we have the design of course, classic Wolverine. Arguably a fan favorite to this day throughout the entire franchise. I mean, he was broken as crap in these games, but I would actually argue Wolverine in Marvel vs. Capcom 1 is maybe the best version of Wolverine there is in the franchise. Personal perspective, though, keep in mind. And pretty cool Rogue, don't get me wrong. It's the ultimate classic Rogue, but like I said before, my favorite design of Rogue is X-Men Evolution animated series. Was my favorite design of her. I just love the goth style better. Still is definitely a classic version of Rogue. Now this guy right here, this guy was a pain in the, excuse my language, he was a pain in the ass to fight. Gambit was always a pain to fight in these games. Pretty much any of them. I mean, he was quite a pain to fight against in Marvel 1. This guy was also a nightmare to fight against. I mean, I actually like playing with him personally. He's probably one of my top 5 favorite characters in this game to play with. Definitely top 3 favorite Marvel characters in the roster. I mean, man, his damage is ridiculous. Rogue, or not Rogue, but sorry, Storm is a character I've always loved the design. I just never really got into her playstyle. This guy right here is a nightmare to fight against, no matter what game he's in. Though, I can't count how many times over the years this guy killed me in all the games but Children of the Atom, Juggernaut. Frankly, just give up. Just accept your doom. But he is OP in every game he's ever been in. But he's fun when I use him myself against computer. This guy is another one that was a nightmare to fight against. Though I never really got too much into his playstyle, in all honesty. This guy is quite the pain, especially given the stupid satellites, the way he uses them as weapons. You want to try to destroy as many of the satellites as you can. That's why I think one of the best characters to use against him was always Omega Red. In my opinion, was one of the best characters. Classic Alpha version Ryu. Then you get to see Chun in both her Street Fighter 2 and Alpha costumes. Personally, I always liked her Alpha costume. But don't get me wrong, Street Fighter 2 Chun design is an all-time classic. And she is the original fighting game waifu. Ken, I think somewhat underrated character in this game, in all honesty. Dalsim, I never knew anyone who ever used him. Pretty much in any Street Fighter game that I can think of. Zangief actually was quite useful. Especially if you like grappler characters. Zangief is perfect. Zangief was always kind of OP in these games, in all honesty. I played with Zangief quite a bit in Street Fighter, or not Street Fighter, but in Marvel vs. Capcom 1. Also, I used him off and on a lot, and also CVS 2. But transforming to male Zangief was quite nice. Charlie Nash, which, to be honest, I always liked Charlie more than Guile. Cammy, an all-time classic. Always did love this design for Bison. I think, to me, this is peak Bison, in my opinion. I was always just a fan of this era of Bison, more than a lot of people, I think. I was always a big fan of the Alpha design. And there's my guy right there, Akuma. Easily, probably my favorite character to play with in most of the games, with the exception of maybe Alpha 2. I love him in Alpha 3 though. Alpha 2, he was not very good. Some pretty cool alternate art. Checking out some cool classic ads. Basically, it looks like Cyclops and Snoopy almost. That's cool, getting to see like comic book artwork. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty good, I think, first outing of the actual crossover. I mean, Cyclops, Storm, Wolverine, Gambit, Rogue, of course the nightmare that is Juggernaut, Magneto, Ryu, Ken, Chun, Nash, Dalsim, Zangief, Cammy, Bison, Akuma. I love that art. That's pretty cool. Some pretty cool basic early art. Everyone's trying to, I guess, ask out Chun. Not surprised. And there's my guy, Omega Red. That's pretty cool, actually, in the place of Bison. Magneto. Yeah, I'm showing moves and stuff you could do with Rogue. It's the basic stages. And that's it. Now on to my personal favorite of the two, the one I have the most nostalgia for. This is the original, well, this technically isn't the original Japanese artwork. Let me show reverse one picture. This is the difference. Do you see the difference? There's one character missing from the re-release artwork. And of course that is a certain Japanese comedian, which if you want to play him in the collection, you will have to switch over to the Japanese version of Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter if you want to play with him. Though he's kind of a joke character, and gameplay wise, I think actually Dan Hibiki plays better than him, in all honesty. But check out the rest. Of course, there's our dear Captain America. Cyclops. Of course, most people's favorite. And there's my guy right there, Blackheart. Easily in my top 5 favorite characters on the roster. I would say my top 5 easily. Blackheart, of course Akuma. I would also say maybe Omega Red is in my top 5. I always did love Omega Red's design look. And, oh, he was busted. That grab of his he can do with his tentacles, yeah, is pretty busted, but once you get the hang of using them, it's definitely useful to have in a tight spot. Of course, our favorite, Eyeball. Again, with the more alpha anime aesthetic, which I think is the best route to go with games like this. And let's be honest, Chun has always been like top tier in these games. Pretty much all the crossover games, she's always been one of the top tier characters. You, on the other hand, Dalsim, have always been at the bottom tier. Zangief tends to go back and forth. Sakura, I didn't play her too much in this game, though she was fun on occasion to use. Though you can unlock an evil version of her, which can actually use the Raging Demon. Yes, I mean 100% serious. There is an evil Sakura. And of course, everyone's favorite lovable joke character, Dan Hibiki, which I've always been a big fan of Dan. I always will be a fan of this guy. He's just hilarious. Of course, again, Best Bison. And there's my guy. My #1 favorite Street Fighter character of all time. Really, in my opinion, one of the original true badass characters in a fine game. But there we go. There is the boss right there. Cyber Akuma. Honestly, he looks like he came straight out of Power Rangers. Well, Power Rangers or possibly VR Troopers, one of the two Saban shows. And if you don't know what VR Troopers is, just Google search it or look it up on YouTube and check out Grim Lord's transformation scene where he touches his orb and says, "Forces of darkness empower me, take me back to my virtual reality." But yeah, Cyber Akuma is awesome. Maybe the coolest design Akuma. Well, up there with maybe Oni. And of course there's the Joe character, which in the 90s when they released this, he was one of the most popular Japanese comedians, easily of that decade. There were a lot of people at Capcom that loved the character. And he is quite fun to play with on occasion, but I don't recommend trying to do a full playthrough of the game with him because, let's just say, you try using him against Cyber Akuma, you will be destroyed. This Cyber Akuma is a pain to fight against no matter what. I love that promotional artwork right there with Dan. Of course, some basic storyboard stuff. And the iconic picture. That looks interesting. Yeah, sure, keep dreaming, Sakura. Now that's pretty awesome right there. Dan with Spider-Man. And that's cool, actually shows the picture, like the frame by frame of just how he walks. Because he definitely had a uniqueness. If you look at the way he moved though, I would say there's definitely a lot of elements in the game of Omega Red that very similar to a certain Street Fighter V exclusive character who transforms basically into almost like a Super Saiyan. If you play Street Fighter V, you know who I'm talking about. And there he is. I'm honestly surprised they actually managed to get him in the remaster collection because of, I can only imagine the copyright loops they had to go through to get him. But it just shows there are people still at Capcom that love this comedian. And that's it. Now we move on to Marvel vs. Capcom 1. Out of all the games in this collection, this is arguably my #1 favorite game in the collection. Yes, my favorite is not Marvel vs. Capcom 2, it's Marvel vs. Capcom 1. Clash of Superheroes. This is easily my favorite. This is iconic artwork in my opinion. The classic original cover art. I mean, bringing back classics like Captain America, of course, you can't go wrong. All-time classic. Also, of course, bringing back Wolverine makes plenty of sense. Of course, you had to bring Spider-Man back. Bring back Hulk, because Marvel. And they had to, for some reason, bring back this Pain to fight against. But then, at the time, due to certain copyright stuff, they weren't actually able to use Iron Man. Rather, they ended up using War Machine due to copyright problems at the time. I remember reading an article from Game Informer back in the late 90s. I talked about that there was some copyright stuff at the time between Marvel and Capcom and everything, and they were unable to get the rights and stuff to Iron Man at the time. I think it had something to do with the Iron Man animated series for some reason, so they ended up having to go with War Machine. But I thought this was a perfect introduction of War Machine, and may I add, War Machine is one of my probably top 5 favorite characters off of MVC1. Of course, also bringing into the fold in this game, bringing in Venom was a great choice. Venom is pretty fun character to play within this game. And there is the true, I think, the coolest looking boss in all of Marvel vs. Capcom franchise. The true powerhouse that is Onslaught, which I actually still have original comic books and stuff of the Onslaught arc from Marvel, which is really cool actually. Combining elements of Charles Xavier and Magneto together to create this. I would say design-wise and boss-wise, he's my favorite of the series. I would say in a second place, I'd probably give to Ultron Sigma. But Onslaught has always been my favorite boss of the franchise. Of course, going back, classic Ryu again, Chun, Zangief, and pretty much the only Street Fighter characters, weirdly enough. However, they would introduce to the crossover series new characters like Jin, which of course came from Cyberbots Full Metal Madness, which I own on Saturn. It's actually a legit great game. It's also, of course, the Capcom Fighting Collection 1, which if you haven't played, I recommend trying out Cyberbots. It's a lot of fun. You can unlock a Gundam-sized version of Akuma called... basically, it's just like a giant Goki. It's pretty awesome. And there's definitely nice head nods in his hyper combos and stuff with Jin. Of course, also bringing into the fold the first time in the series, they brought in Morrigan from Darkstalkers. Of course, you could unlock her alternate costume, which is a head nod to, obviously, her alternate costume, which is a head nod to Lilith. He also had Gold War Machine, which had infinite armor. Red Venom, which had double speed. Basically broke the game. Between him and Gold War Machine broke the game. Orange Hulk was an interesting character. He wasn't quite... he could take a little more damage than regular Hulk, but at the same time, Orange Hulk also was a little bit faster. He had better speed advantage. Then you have, of course, Max's favorite character, favorite ninja of all time, Strider Hiryu. Like I've said before, I love Strider. He is my second favorite fighting game ninja of all time. Second only to the face of really Dead or Alive and Ninja Gaiden. Of course, my favorite ninja of all time will always be Ryu Hayabusa. Still, Strider is pretty epic looking, his design. And if you've never played the Strider games, give them a shot. Especially the 2014 game. Legit good. Ah yes, Captain Commando from the classic beat 'em up, Capcom. Which actually has this game in a Capcom collection on the PSP. Capcom Classics Remix. Which also has the original Street Fighter on it. Captain Commando was a pretty cool character, I thought, for the most part. And of course, classic OG Mega Man, which you can't go wrong with. I mean, he's always been in my top 5 of this game. I mean, yeah, War Machine's in my top 5. I would probably put Ryu in the top 5. Definitely Mega Man's in there. And of course, the little sister role. Classic character. And yet somehow Roll ended up getting, I think, maybe just about the best theme song out of everyone in the game. She's the only character that got a theme with actual lyrics. It's kind of crazy. Roll got legit maybe the best overall, I think, theme of any character in the game. Outside of her best theme, I love these poses. One thing I want to say, Hulk is a nightmare to find in this game. He is legit broken. Man. Probably one of my favorite teams in this game is probably, I would say, Captain America and War Machine. Or also War Machine and Iron Man is another one of my favorites. Zangief, again, is legit really good in this game. He is a monster. He's not quite the same level as Hulk, but still Zangief is legit great in this game. Jin, he's definitely a character that takes some time to get used to gameplay-wise. But I'll never forget this, as this was one of the games I picked up on launch day of the Sega Dreamcast. I picked up a total of 3 games on launch day of the Dreamcast. I picked up the original Soul Calibur, I picked up Marvel vs. Capcom, and I picked up Sonic Adventure. Those were my first 3 games I ever played on the Dreamcast. All still very heavy nostalgia, and I still have all 3 of those games. They all hold a very real special place for me personally. I'll always have a special place in my heart for the Dreamcast. Will always be my favorite console of all time. It had, I think, easily the best launch roster of games of any console of all time. Close up of Morrigan, and I was happy to see Morrigan in this game, as I was somebody who did play original Darkstalkers and Darkstalkers 3 on the PS1. It was definitely nice. And it is weird, I never played this on the PS1, because I can never find a copy of this game on PS1. Even if I knew it was downgraded, but I knew there were special features in the PS1 version. Of course, Strider with his scarf. And the classic Mega Man. And then, of course, your special, like, backup character you could use a limited amount of times of, which are really cool head nods to other games from Capcom, like Colossus being a legit really good one to use. Venom, like I said, Venom was a legit lot of fun in this game to play with. He was arguably one of the best characters you could use of your assists. Arguably maybe the best character assist, though you only got 3 of Juggernaut. If you time it right, I mean, Juggernaut assist can do some serious damage. One other thing I liked about this game was with Ryu, the fact you could transform Ryu into, like, red costume Ryu, and he basically had this, instead has Ken's moves, which is pretty cool. So changes it up a little, so that way if, like, you're really good at playing Ken, but Ken's not in the game, you could just transform Ryu into basically red costume Ryu, and then just use Ken's moveset. Yes. Nice little head nod. Oh, arguably one of the most overpowered Capcom characters of all time. Of course, comes from the Darkstalker universe, which Donovan protects her. Wind pose, classic. Man, just look at that pose with Onslaught. Just so awesome. I just hope eventually they bring characters like Jin back in the future. I always expect Morrigan to return. She pretty much has stuck around. It is kind of weird the fact Morrigan was actually not in like one or two crossover games, weirdly enough. It is kind of crazy though, she was the only Darkstalker character to appear in Capcom vs. SNK 2. It was nice, at least in Marvel Infinite, the fact they brought Jedha back. He hadn't been in a game since Capcom Fine Evolution. I just love, honestly, this artwork. So cool. Very nostalgic. No matter how many times I look at artwork for Onslaught, I can't get enough of his design. One thing I'll say about Chun, it's not easy to do, but if you can do her mid-air kick of hers, man, does that thing do damage. Probably one of the coolest pieces of artwork I've ever seen with Strider. And Raw is just funny. And it looks like this is about the end of the artwork. Thank you for coming down memory lane with me. And I'll see y'all again soon enough. And I love that little heading on to OG Mega Man with that artwork, is pretty awesome. Speaking as a longtime Mega Man fanboy, the more X. And there's the basic look of how Onslaught is. One of the characters from the Captain Commando game. Some pretty cool stages, and it's cool also they brought this stage back in a future game. Classic from original Mega Man games. Probably one of the most beloved, I would say, stages on this game. And the awesome artwork with Onslaught. Okay, and that's it. I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel. Stay safe out there.